They took your name, your land, your language, but not your legacy. Reclaim it at AfricanAncestry.com.
We spoke about earlier in regards to the power of the mind, right? I can attest. So I have this pinched nerve here that comes and goes. I can actually say, I would argue that I control it based on what I'm doing, my stress level, and my fatigue. Based on my thought pattern, I know it's coming in. And based on my thought pattern, it cools off.
So that, like, based off of the 3 T's that I told you, the thoughts, the trauma, the toxins. Yeah, so your thoughts, you can literally just,
I can literally say, like, if I'm really stressing and bugging up top, it flares up.
Yeah.
Then I could catch myself and change my thought pattern, and it'll cool off.
yeah. See, and that's man, that's a blessing that you're able to see, you know what I mean? That's a blessing that you have the awareness, because that's all we're really doing whenever we're lying in this body is we're increasing awareness. Your ability to be aware of what's going on in the body. Because to most people, their awareness is very low. So they're just like, I just don't know how I'm hurting. I can tell you right now, anything that hurts my body, I can tell you why it's hurting. You shouldn't be that disconnected from your body where you're like, I don't know why my body's hurting. But most people are, because of the overstimulation, being left brain dominant. They're constantly being go. They never sit down and they rest. And like you said, you sat down and you can be like, oh man, I'm stressing. And then you can, the stress, and then it goes away. Awareness, and that's just one fragment of what it is. There's ultimate awareness too, where you can like sit in one space and you can notice what's going on outside of the room, because you're bringing your awareness more than just this space right here. You're expanding your awareness. And that's one thing I also learned whenever I was in the jungle, is that they said that thoughts are very dangerous because thoughts contaminate the mind. Just like, when you're stressing, those thoughts contaminate your body.
Facts.
It's the same thing, that those thoughts can contaminate not only your mind, but if you want to be, like for me, for instance, I told them, when I went down to the jungle, they all speak Spanish. And I told them that I'm a chiropractor and that I work with my hands, and, they're aware of what I do. And so they said, okay, well, you're essentially, in their village, you're a healer. So they had me get to work. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was a luxury person, even though I was paying them to be there and to sit with these elders for this time period, these 2-3 weeks. They treated me like I was a person in that village. So they said, okay, you got to go to work. So I was working and creating the medicine, right? So I was breaking up the vine to get the meat of the vine, because you can't just like grab a vine and just make it. You have to like break it open, get all the meat in, then you get all the leaves, and then you boil it for hours and hours, and then strip out all the waste, and then boil it again and keep boiling it until it's the sap that, I was telling you. And I was working on it, and I have a video of me doing it. And I was just working on this vine, and I was just hitting it. And I was just hitting the vine because they use a mallet, wooden mallet, and they just crack it open, and then you start getting the meat out of it. And he was like, yo. And I was like, what, what's the issue? And I'm just crying. He's like, no. You're here. He said, you need to get out of your thoughts and just focus on the medicine. And I was like, bro, I don't feel like I'm even doing anything. But yes, by the way I'm striking it, that I'm in my thoughts. And quite frankly, I was, like just micro thoughts. It wasn't even like I was just like, man, why am I? It was just like, just thoughts of, okay, I'm in the jungle, just thinking. And he said that that's contaminating the medicine. So it's going to have an effect that when I'm done making that medicine, they drink it, it's going to be no good. And I was just like, so then he broke down to me. He's like, look, even if you're making this medicine, you just go up and you look at somebody, just look at a friend, and you look back at the medicine, you have contaminated your whole work, because it's all based off of intention, And so then that like gave me goosebumps and chills, because that was, I think, one of the greatest lessons I learned whenever I was out there in the jungle. But ancestral, all that doesn't matter. That was the greatest thing I learned, was that not letting my thoughts contaminate my medicine. So if I'm working on somebody and I'm making sure that I'm focused in on that adjustment I'm working, I can't be before that listening to King Von and I'm contaminating my medicine. I can't be going over there and eating refined sugars and, eating Chick-fil-A and all this processed food, and then coming to go adjust somebody. I'm contaminating my medicine. So everything is so detailed on, what you're doing before you're committing and doing that work, And so, I mean, it's not something I recommend for everybody, because I know now, like when I was younger, I was just like, everybody should be doing whatever, but it's not made for everybody to be broken up in that way. Most people aren't ready. I think that most people should if they have the means and they have the uh, awareness, because it's survival of the fittest, you know. At the end of the day, not all people were made to survive or be on that level where they can like really get deep and break down things so they can be a certain pillar in the community. Some people just made it just go to work, do the thing, go back home. You know what I mean? And so I know that my path is a little bit different. You know, not saying it's a right or wrong path. Mine's just a little bit different. For people who are very similar to what I'm doing or strive for that, I advise and challenge to work on that internal work. It doesn't have to be ayahuasca. It doesn't have to be any of those plant medicines. But you got to find some time where you're sitting silently, because what's the issue with today in society is that there's a lack of true love in people and how they communicate, because they don't really truly love themselves. A lot of people, if you tell them, challenge them like, hey, I want you to go home and just sit in silence for 30 minutes by yourself, they can't do that. They can't do that. They're fidgeting. 5 minutes in, they're like, what was I supposed to eat? Or I need to text that person back. Or that's in that email. They can't. 30 minutes to just sitting there silently and sitting with yourself. Because if you're sitting with yourself, do you feel like you're sitting with a complete stranger? They don't know who they're sitting with. So they feel uncomfortable. They feel almost fidgety.
Dr. K. Adamawi Knife said the person you spend the most time with, you know the least about.
Yeah. Literally. And it's crazy, man. There's so many different like tools that kind of show where people are lacking in that aspect of, you know, what's actually going on the inside and how to like heal and purify that thing so you can be a proper vessel in the community, you know.